This is a Ben Frank Connection presentation.
What is going on, everybody? We are back. Wow, I hate that layout already. All right, we're going to keep it here for now. We are back with another episode of the ABJ Podcast. For yous, these have been going every week flawlessly. No issues, no problems. The background may change here and there if you're watching the video. But, man, what a trip it's been. All right, so obviously everything's been going down. Been pre-recording all these. I think we have 2 more of these pre-recorded interviews, and then we'll be more current with our guests. Hopefully by then you'll have seen the new content has dropped and all this fun stuff that's going on with the channel. Thank you all for sticking around. I've been doing the live streams when it comes to the watch alongs for Raw, SmackDown, and everything, which has really been helping the channel grow. And these podcasts have been kind of sneaking in here and there. So full disclosure, the way this has been kind of going is I recorded a whole bunch of them. And then anyone who reached out to me that was like, I'd love to be on your show. First off, I'm honored. It means the world to me that people care enough about my product that they want to be on it. So if they reached out, I had them on the show. And then I kind of went that route for a while, but pretty soon we'll be back to full more current interviews. I don't know if they'll be live. Maybe I'll throw a couple here and there to you live, but I think that pre-records is the way to go for now. But huge thank you to everyone who's been supporting. Make sure you check the links below for all things ABJ, whether it be merchandise. We've been pumping out crazy merchandise, whether it be following me on social media. Hopefully by this time, fingers crossed, we will be monetized on YouTube. As of today of recording, it is January 17th. We are 700 watch hours away from being monetized on YouTube. We already hit the 500 subscribers. We're up to 800 now. I think it's like 887 or 885 or something, which we are grinding away. And then we're probably going to shut down the Patreon and move everything to YouTube for the monetization, where you can just subscribe to the YouTube and get content that way. If you are listening to this and you're only audio only, I am going to be opening up a way you could support almost like a Patreon and get bonus content through Spotify or through Anchor or whatever hell it's called now, so you can support that way. So it's like a monthly donation you can just give to you put your account in, and then every month maybe $5 or $2, whatever you set it up to, comes out, and then you can support the channel that way. So there'll be an audio way to do it and a video way to do it. You could do it straight through Spotify, or you could do it straight through YouTube. That's the goal. Hopefully by the time this airs, that's where we're at. But huge thank you to everybody. Like I said, it's been a crazy couple months, but we're grinding along, getting some stuff done. Also, make sure you check out the links below for my guest, whether it be merch pages, social media. Make sure you reach out to them and say, hey, I listened to the podcast. Give them some feedback on what you may or may not have learned about them. And let's get straight to it here. Have some fun. Let's bring in my guest. We are 2 of 4, now 2. After today will be 3 of 4 members of this amazing stable of bright young men in this business. We'll learn more about the story. Maybe we'll learn a little tweak of how they all met each time. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. But let's get our 3rd member of the Lost Boys here today, Miles Penn. What's going on, bud?
Good to see you, buddy. I'm glad to finally be on here.
I'm super excited you're here too. We met. I think the first time I actually met you was Fightertainment, right? Or did we meet before that? Did you come to the Sanctuary?
I think maybe just informally before then. I don't think we properly introduced ourselves. Maybe with like some leapfrog, high tension stuff, I believe.
Okay.
Something like that. But I believe Fightertainment is when it was just like, yeah, let's sit down, let's get this done.
Yeah. Now, the Fightertainment's interesting for you and another member of the team. We talked about it previous episode, is because you guys aren't 21 yet, correct?
That is correct. I am only 20 years old as of now. Yeah. Yeah,
you're the baby of the group. So neither one is. Well, Ethan is 21, but he doesn't drink, right? Or he's about to turn 21
in May.
In May, that's what it is. Yeah. So both of you legally can't drink. You can't enjoy the beverages at Fightertainment. I missed the last show, but I heard that you guys did you actually wrestled as a team at this one, right?
So this one was a little bit different. I teamed with Harleen and Berger representing Team Worldwide, and then there
Okay.
was the other three members representing the Lost Boys because this was a king of not trios, this was a king of triangles tournament.
Okay.
And so Speedball put the groups together, and it was very convoluted, but it was a lot of fun.
How was it to not represent the Lost Boys and be Team Worldwide?
It was a bit odd because obviously Team Worldwide, that's like, a lot of positive energy. And the first show I was not filled with a lot of positive energy, at least for what I was, relaying to the crowd. And I get there and Speedball's like, yeah, this was a tough decision, but you're gonna be on this team, and it's gonna be these three with the Lost Boys. I didn't ask why, but I was just like, oh man, okay. I think honestly one of the weirdest parts was that I was wearing my black trunks again, and because the tights that I have now are my Lost Boys gear, and I have not worn those trunks in such a long time. I felt so plain. I felt so basic for
Like
them.
young boy. You were a young boy, ended up.
No, literally, like they were just my like young lion, E-Lucha starter gear, and all I had that was different was just my pink headband. So
Yeah.
it was very odd. It was really cool though. It was fun. I like situations like that just because I get to wrestle them sometimes. And it's always a good time in the ring whenever we get to face off against each other. We actually have a list of just like how many times we've just been in a match together. Like it's just like, oh, Ethan 17, Ryan like 22,
So is Ryan the one you worked the most?
I would say so. I've definitely had the most singles matches against Ryan. I haven't worked Junie in a singles. But me and Ryan also tag more frequently. So just overall, I definitely like work with Ryan the most.
Yeah. You guys are a very fun team to watch. You're very entertaining, whether your guys are doing solo projects, whether you're doing your mixed match tag. If one guy's there, the other guy fills in. It's a very fun stable. We'll learn more about that in a moment. So kind of just sticking with the world team worldwide here. Working now, teaming up with Harleen and Cheeseburger. You got the veteran, and you got you kind of in your younger days, and Harleen just hit her first year. How did you guys mesh as a team? How'd it work?
It was pretty cool, actually. Harleen is just like she gets things done, like she was kind of like the bruiser of the team. She was like, all right, I don't care what happens, I'm ripping somebody's head off. And I was like, you know what, that's the kind of energy we need on this team. And then Burger, I haven't gotten a team with Burger yet. I've faced him twice, once in a singles, once in a tag. This is my first time teaming with Burger, and it was really cool because we were trying to think of different like tag moves or trios moves, and I was just like, Burger, how much do you weigh? And he was like, this much. Why? And I was like, do you think I could gorilla press you? And he was like, yeah, probably. And I was like, all right, bet. All right, where do you post? Because I need to throw you onto these guys. Because the first match was us three versus Team Fantastic, which consisted of Speedball, Tony Deppen, and Journey Burke, which makes a lot of sense as a team name.
Yeah.
But I was just like, if I could
Journey Burke landed it in these shows. She gets really good either teams or she just gets good matchups, and it helps her so much because like I remember like what she worked with Speedball 1-on-1, and after the show she was like, I don't know how it happened, but I'm for it. I learned so much. I can say I work Speedball, and now she's teaming with him. And then Deppen's first time ever wrestling in his own brewery, and Journey teams with them. Like she gets it. She lands in it.
It was, she has a lot of great matchups for sure. And then it was really fun seeing Deppen finally wrestle in his own ring, in his own bar, I mean. But
yeah.
I know you weren't there, and I hate to spoil the finish, but what we ended up doing as a trios move was a triple shote to Speedball. Because I was like, Burger, how do you place that properly? And he was like, oh yeah, Liger taught me. And I'm like, I know Liger taught you. He's like, all right, so you just place here, just kind of like go through with this motion. And I was like, all right, bet. And then we just smacked the hell out of Team Fantastic, and it was great. Although I did get beat to hell by Speedball throughout the match, which I expected, and it was awesome. But I was just like, oh man, sheesh.
How is it taking kicks from Speedball?
It's about what you would expect. It's
awful, right?
Yeah. Like it's the safest. It's the hardest I've ever been hit safely, I would say.
Imagine if he was legit gonna hit you with that. Like if it was a legit fight.
No, yeah. If you just like,
Yeah, that's scary.
no, because I got rocked a couple weeks ago, just with a forearm, and I was just like, oh, this was terrible because it was just like right against my jaw, and I was like, that's not fun. But all of his stuff was placed, perfectly. I was just like, oh, it just knocked the wind out of me a little bit. But I didn't hold back against him either. I did hit him very hard as well. He didn't say anything about it, but I'm sure he's used to it. Just right off the gate, we started brawling, and I just threw a couple forearms, and he threw some forearms back, and I was just like, oh, I guess we're starting now. All right, because I was prepared, and I knew it was just a taste of what was to come. Because I took his sequence that he's very, very good at, which was like a back kick, an X kick, a chest kick, and then a standing shooting star, right? Or running shooting star press. And I was like, surely these kicks can't get like even harder, right? Like there's no chance. And then just the chest kick just rocked me, and I had to bump on the mat, and it was fine. Like the bump didn't hurt at all, but I was just like, oh my gosh, like thank God the next thing is a shooting star press and not like a double knees or something like that, because oh man, I'm going through
his
it right
finish looks like it's the worst to take. Like when he comes off the top rope, I was like, I would never want to take that. No, thank you.
It's like I'll do it, but I'm just not excited to.
Yeah,
it's like
that's the end. I'm not getting back.
No, yeah. If I'll kick out of something, don't let me kick out of that. I want the match to stop there. There's been a couple times where the match, I take the finish and I'm just like, thank God that's it. Like, oh my goodness. I want to go to the back. I want to get cleaned up. I want to put some ice on my chest. I don't want to stay in this ring any longer.
Yeah. It's funny you said about Harleen said, I'm just going to go in there and kill somebody. I was at a show over the weekend. Journey just made her debut there, and they were kind of going over their match, and they're like, hey, this is where we're kind of leading up to. I don't want, well, by the time this airs, it'll probably be gone already. But they're like, oh, we're going to bring in Harleen. And I was like, yeah, Harleen Journey. I don't know if you ever worked her or not, because they work so much. She's like, yeah, I've heard of her. But it's going to lead into like a tag. And they're like, well, the girl it was going to be a 2-on-1 because the girl, because if we put a girl with her, she's got to be imposing and strong and like a beast. And I go, yeah, then put Harleen there. And he's like, well, how tall is Harleen? I'm like, well, it's not very tall, but she's strong as shit. And they're like, they're like, really? And then he's like, well, maybe that's the way we'll do it. So like knowing the talent, I was able, we kind of on the fly were like, yeah, if you're going to do like two imposing people, Harleen and this girl versus Journey and this girl will be perfect. And they're like, and I said, the chemistry's already there, so it'll be fine. They're like, all right, cool. That's what we're going to do then. So it was fun that she already has a blueprint about her before she even walks in the door to the company, because we were able to fill in those gaps. But she's like, she's shorter. I was like, yes, but she's like, she kicked the shit out of anybody. She's a cool character.
Arguably more intimidating because she's shorter. There's just something about it. Yeah. Because you're like, oh, she's smaller. How bad could it possibly be? And then she just decks you, and it's like, oh, so pretty bad.
Yeah. It's gonna be a long night. But when did you fall in love with this industry of professional wrestling? What's your earliest memory? Run us through that.
So I was only on one other podcast before this, and I said it there as well. I have it down to the day. We're actually just coming up on 10 years. We just passed 10 years of me being a wrestling fan. So I'm 20, right? It's December 23rd, 2013. I'm 10 years old. My siblings may have been home at the time. I don't know. My parents were out grocery shopping, right? They were just at ShopRite or something like that. And I'm just on the couch flipping through the channels. And then I just happened to stumble upon Raw. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And I had maybe seen a little bit of it before, but I didn't really understand it or know what it was. And I had heard of Hulk Hogan or John Cena. Did I know what they look like? Not really. I just knew the names, but I'm watching, and the match that's going on is The Shield versus, it's the main event of, the Christmas Raw.
Oh my God, 10 years ago, The Shield was still a thing. He just made me feel insanely old.
It's a very unlikely matchup. It's The Shield versus John Cena, CM Punk, and Big E Langston. This is when he still had the Langston in his name, back, right after the 3 Ain't Enough, I Need 5, shortly after his NXT days, his Dolph Ziggler, AJ Lee days, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
and there was something about it. It was a very simple match. I could probably call you that match beat by beat just because of how many times I've seen it. Because watching it back, like, it's just a very simple, just crowd pleasing WWE match. You know,
That's
just
most
a feel
weekly
good.
wrestling television for Raw or SmackDown. I always tell people,
Yeah.
like, why don't you like Raw or SmackDown? It's like they mostly sell you the story beats and not so much the wrestling week to week. And then
Mhm.
they really hit you with a grand finale show at a pay-per-view. That's just WWE style. So weekly wrestling gets kind of boring if you're a smart fan, because you're like, oh, these are just crowd pleasing matches every week. And yeah,
Mhm. But then you have people like me, just little 10-year-old me, who is now a professional wrestler and, you know, trying to make it to the WWE, just that are just inspired by matches like that. There was like, they didn't do anything crazy flashy or anything like that. It wasn't like, you know, there were a bunch of high spots all over the place, but it was just like the story beats and the storytelling and just the psychology of the match. And I'm like, oh my God, Punk, you're so close to tagging Cena. You're so close. Come on, just reach a little bit more. And then Cena gets pulled off the apron and Roman Superman punches him. And I'm like, oh my God, like, how could you? And then JBL's like, oh, did you see that Superman punch? Like, who else could do that? And I'm like, John Cena could do it for sure. Because I just know John Cena. And like, I don't know how I formed this opinion because I didn't really have any kind of preconceived notion of professional wrestling, but I was just like, that's my guy. Like Cena, like that's him. That's my guy. And I was just a big Cena fan for a really long time. And I still am. He's my all-time favorite wrestler. But
yeah,
watching that match.
That's how I fell into Sean. I was just like, whoever that guy is, that's my favorite. Yeah, I was torn. I was torn between Sean. I liked Macho Man because everyone else liked Hogan, and I needed the counterpart to that. And then I fell in love with Piper because I thought, oh, this guy's he's just something about Piper attracted me. And I loved Mr. Perfect. I don't know. I always loved Mr. Perfect. I think it's because of Bobby Heenan. Bobby Heenan sold me on him. If you were with Bobby, I loved it. Yeah.
And it's funny because this was end of 2013. So the first Punk that I was exposed to was like the mutton chops Punk, you know, just like feuding with the Shield and, you know, Corporate Kane and stuff like that. And I just think that's really funny because that was such a tiny part of his career. And just that's what like I initially grew up on. But yeah, the match ended with just like the Shield got themselves disqualified, you know, from beating the hell out of, I think it was Big E. And then Cena comes in, you know, stops him from the triple power bomb, you know, hits an AA and a go to sleep and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God, that was amazing. It was just, it just spoke to me. And then I got like a Nook for Christmas, which is just like a tablet thing for kids that you're supposed to use for books. I didn't use it for books. I use it for YouTube. And the only thing I would look up is just, oh, WWE, John Cena versus Roman Reigns, John Cena versus CM Punk. Just, I didn't know any kind of storylines or anything like that. I was just like, oh, this is a wrestler that I've heard of. This is a wrestler that I've heard of. Let me see if they've had a match. WWE, Kofi Kingston versus Fandango, you know, just like super random, just wrestlers because that's all I cared about.
What is your favorite Cena match?
Oh my God, don't ask me that. There's so many good ones.
Top of my head, AJ.
That's Cena AJ, the 2017 Rumble, phenomenal match. Absolutely incredible match. I hated Styles when he got to WWE because it was still real to me. And so he's just like beat up John Cena and I'm like, yo, screw, like, go somewhere, AJ, okay? Like, leave my man's alone. Like, you're over here attacking him with your boys, you know, you're cheating. I don't want to hear it. The 15 Rumble, the triple threat with him and Rollins and Lesnar.
Yeah,
that was a great match. I remember his 2013 Survivor Series TLC match with Orton. The match wasn't like crazy or anything like that, but it was just like very emotional. Because I'm just like, oh my God, Orton is such a bitch. Like, he's over here handcuffing Cena. I hate him so much because I'm just a little kid. I don't understand that.
He was your Hogan. He was your
I despised Orton so much.
See, I was that weird kid who liked all the bad guys. Like he's beating up Hogan, and all the other little kids are crying. And I'm like, yeah, kick his face in.
For sure. Like,
I was always the weird.
Like I'm over here a big Dean Ambrose fan, and then Ethan's just walking around, just like doing the Seth Rollins laugh, and talking about the undisputed future of the WWE. And I'm like, man,
he wasn't wrong.
I don't want to hear it. He wasn't wrong at all. And looking back now, hell of a character.
I missed that whole era. So I stopped watching in 2005, like my high school years, because wrestling wasn't cool anymore, and I became a mixed martial arts fan. So I missed that whole section of wrestling that now I'm going back and relearning. But yeah, like, so I missed a huge chunk of that. I actually came back when everyone's like, you should watch it because Punk and Daniel Bryan, and I was like, oh, okay. And then they both left, and I was like, now what? And then I watched for a little bit. And then I started doing the podcast, and then AEW was like in the talks of starting. And I was like, all right, well, what a perfect way to jump in. This new company is about to kick off. So we kind of like started the content around that time about 7 years ago now. So it's been a wild, like, wrestling is such a wild thing, just kind of when you break it down by like my age group compared to your age group, and hearing different people say like what match sparked them. So it's fun. I love that question. I know a lot of people hate it, but it's, for my aspect, I think it's fun just to see like where you lie as a fan. But yeah. Do you have any Cena merchandise? Like, what's your favorite Cena merchandise?
Ooh. So there's a few things that I wish I had that I didn't. I believe the first piece of merch that I ever got, I believe I got two things for my first like order. It was like for Christmas the following year or something like that. It was like a Lunatic Fringe long sleeve shirt.
Okay.
And then a John Cena Christmas hat, which I still have. And
do you really?
Yeah, I don't have it with me, otherwise I would show you. But it's like, it has like a white base, and then it's a light blue, and it just has like the three logos. Like it has like this logo, and then like the hustle, loyalty, respect, and all that stuff. And then it says like never give up on it. And I'm just like, oh man,
you should have worn that for the hat, or the hat rumble.
I wasn't at that one. Otherwise, I probably would have.
That'd have been great. I have one John Cena t-shirt, and I ordered it because someone told me it existed, but Cena made a Pabst Blue Ribbon shirt. It looked like the Pabst Blue Ribbon can, and it was his cartoon on it. And he wore it for like a week, and he got the cease and desist from Pabst Blue Ribbon. They to take it off the marketplace, but some people ordered them and got them in. And I found someone who sold it on eBay, and I ordered it off them. So I have the discontinued Pabst Blue Ribbon John Cena. Yeah.
That is super special.
It's the only shirt I'll probably never get rid of, because like I have so many t-shirts, and during the summertime I'm gonna probably sell a bunch of them or get rid of a bunch. But that's one that I'll keep forever. Like that's one of my favorites.
It's a bummer because by the time I started like actually buying merch, all the good John Cena shirts were gone, and it just like wasn't as good anymore. Like
that anniversary one he just came out with, it looks like an old Nintendo game.
They are getting better. There was just a period where I really didn't like them. Like the neon green one that he had for what felt like an eternity. I wasn't a big fan of that one, and that's all he had. But like the red one, the yellow one, like those were all gone by the time I like actually had money and was able to buy merch. Ethan has like the light blue one, which I was a big fan of. When I went to my first SmackDown, probably in like 2015, I want to say, when I went to my first SmackDown, he let me borrow his that John Cena shirt, which was very gracious of him. And then I had a sign that on one side it was a John Cena side, and then on the other it was a Dean Ambrose sign, because those were my two favorites at the time.
I love that. I wasn't a big Ambrose guy. Like I did not connect with him as Dean Ambrose, and then he left and became Mox. I was like, this guy's great. And the funny thing, I liked Ambrose when he was leaving the company, because I was like, the whole time he was leaving, he didn't care, and every time they just kept giving him a microphone, and he kept being himself of what we were going to see as Dean Ambrose. I mean, as John Moxley. Yeah. And I was like, this character's so boring, but him on the mic is wildly entertaining. And everyone's like, you like him now? I go, this guy's great. Why wasn't he this the whole time? Like,
I think I was very young, and watching it back, if all of that stuff happened now, I probably wouldn't take him as seriously. But as a kid, just growing up on him and watching him like pull up to Raw with like a hot dog cart that he supposedly got from Coney Island, and then beating up Seth Rollins with like a pair of tongs, like that was so funny to me. And just like the whole slime and the briefcase thing and all of that.
I hated his hair. the shaggy, it just didn't look right on him. I don't know.
It was so perfect to me. I was just like, because it was like John Cena was my top, but then Dean Ambrose was my second. Like he was up there for me in like
I love that
2015, 2016.
It's such a polar opposite too. I love that so much.
It is
like,
for sure.
Exciting here. So as soon as you got it, were you hooked? Like you watched it the whole time? That was your thing. Was there ever a time where you took like a break from it, or have you been pedal to metal pro wrestling the entire time?
There'll be times when like I don't tune into Raw or SmackDown too much, but especially with social media, I'm always keeping up with it, and I'll always just, if I go too long without watching a wrestling match, I'll just get a little uneasy, and then I'll just look up matches that I want to watch. But there's never been
to consume so much.
It's endless. It's insane. But there's never been like a prolonged period of time where I just was not a wrestling fan. There might have been times where I may have slowed down a little bit, but I was still always like at the very least keeping up with what was going on. At the very least on a mainstream level, because it wasn't until a few years ago when I started getting into like indie wrestling, New Japan wrestling, stuff like that.
Yeah. Now, were you always when you first seen wrestling, were you like, hey, this is what I want to do when I get older? Was that always in your brain? And if it was, what steps did you take as a kid? Like, oh, this is what I need to do to become better for that step.
So that's an interesting question, because maybe like subconsciously in the back of my mind, because it was always like, okay, that seems like a really cool job. I would want to do that for sure. But I never actually was just like, yeah, this is what I'm going to work for. And then in middle school, I meet Ethan in, 7th grade, and he's trying to get me to join wrestling. And I'm like, why? And he's like, well, one, the conditioning, but also just like, I'm going to be a pro wrestler when I grow up. And, I want the fundamentals of just amateur wrestling. And I was just like, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
so I just kind of like
that kid was locked in. As soon as I'm like, this is gonna be my life.
Since before he was born, literally since before he was born. But I was just like, yeah, okay. I feel like I was very impressionable in just middle school and just early high school. And so for a bit, I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll be a wrestler too. But I didn't actually like take it seriously. I didn't actually think that I was going to do that. And then it got to like the back half of high school. We've done theater, we've done, wrestling, and we said that it was for pro wrestling, but I, in my head, I was just like, I guess, sure. But then
I'm just hanging out my bud.
Yeah. It's just, and then there's talks of college, and it's just like, okay, what do you want your major to be? And for a very split second, I was like, oh, I'll be a theater major, because I was like doing theater, and I went through a little, theater phase in high school. I still like love and appreciate it, but that would have been an awful decision for me personally, at least. Yeah.
You can't. Both your dreams can't be the one that's gonna make you broke. You got to have like one little backup plan.
That's what everybody said. Yeah. Like there was this one English teacher, and I told him about like the wrestling stuff, and then I told him how I thought I wanted to be a theater major, and he was just like, God, you really do not pick the stable, money making majors, do you? And I was like, I guess not.
You're gonna live struggling artist forever.
Yeah. And so I was like, wait a minute, why don't I actually be a wrestler? I was like, why don't I actually be a wrestler? This is what you want to do. And then I thought about it, and I was like, this actually really is what I want to do. Once it became necessary to actually take those steps towards it, I was locked in. And it was like, I had the idea, growing up, but I didn't, really consider it. And then back half of high school, I'm just like, okay, no, screw it. I want to train. I want to be a wrestler. I want to travel. I love traveling. I'm athletic enough. I want to entertain people. I want to perform. I want some 10-year-old flipping through the Christmas episode of Raw to see me on there and then decide that he wants to become a pro wrestler when he grows up. Like I wanted that, and it just kind of hit me, and it eventually just dawned on me that is what I wanted, and that's when I committed. So we started training senior year of high school.
Oh wow! So like you before the college, or you didn't even have that distraction of college. You pretty much signed up for wrestling classes and you were going for it.
Yep.
Now, did you play sports at all growing up, or was it just theater?
Oh, absolutely. I was a big sports guy. So I played like little league football when I was 5. Didn't like it. Didn't really understand it. I was so young, and football is complex. So it was a lot for me to grasp. And then 6th grade until college, I did track. I have a crazy story about that. I don't know if we'll have time to get into that, but like, yeah. So, so I did track for about 6 years, spanning between sprinting events, throwing events, other field events. I was a jumper as well. And then 8th grade, I started wrestling. And so I've amateur wrestled for about 5.5 years. So 8th, 9th, half of 10th, 11th, 12th, and then my freshman year of college, I wrestled as well. Right now I'm a junior. And then football. I started playing again 8th grade, and then I played that for about 3 years.
What position?
Outside linebacker.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I thought for sure with your, I mean, maybe your size. I see you now, and I don't know if like you were the small kid that then sprouted, or if you were chubby and then slimmed up. But like your size now, I'm like, oh, he would have been like a tight end or a cornerback or something like that. Like I don't know.
I mean, tight ends are generally bigger than like 195. And I was very fast, but I also like my cardio is not the best. So I have pretty decent hands, I would say. But I don't know. It's like I was always faster than all of my friends. But then when it came to like the top, people on the teams, it's just like, all right, I wasn't one of those top guys
it's nuts when you hit that space. Like you watch the kid who dominated your entire high school in sports, and then you're like, oh, I'm rooting for him. I'm going to see him on that next level. And then you just see him enter a new pool of people, and you're like, wow, the people in like the world's a big place.
Yeah.
You're like, he looks like I hate when people do that, man. They're like, oh, this guy's a great fighter. And then he goes to UFC and gets killed. He's like, he sucks. I'm like, he doesn't suck. He's still really good. He just there's always someone better than you, man. And when you see it, you're like, wow, it's light years different.
It really, really is. But yeah, and I also feel like I worked very hard in just my sports, but I feel like a lot of times it wasn't recognized. And so at least for football, I feel like I could have been a starting running back as well, because I did play a little bit of running back, not much. Like I don't even know if I got any possessions in high school, but it was so odd because I was faster than like 95% of the team. Like literally 2, maybe 3 guys on the team that were faster than me. And yet I didn't see a single snap on offense. And it was just, it was very trippy. It is
Big
what
school,
it is.
Small school?
1,200 kids maybe.
Okay.
I would say.
Was it very like cliquey, like kids play because their parents are school board type deal?
I don't think so, but that's what it felt like. Like I just wouldn't understand the bias that went into some of these kids. But the story isn't that long, so I'm going to tell it really quick. So there was this one kid, I'm not going to say his name, but completely arrogant, right? This is freshman year of high school football. Ethan and I are on the team. We're both, taking honors classes. We're very mature for our age. We're not in any of the drama, blah, blah, blah. We're behaving, we're doing what we're supposed to, not getting in trouble. And there's this one kid, and his name wasn't, we're just going to call him Kevin, right? So
he seemed like Kevin.
So Kevin was very overhyped. I was faster than him. To my knowledge, I was faster than him, and he didn't want it. He didn't work hard ever, but he played like both sides of the ball and special teams and just was super overhyped, and he didn't even care. Like me and Ethan are out here, like, first ones to show up, last ones to leave. We're helping carry the water jug. We're like being respectful to the coach, asking him whatever he needs. And then there's this other kid just like super, you could just see it in his eyes. He just didn't want it. And then there'd be practices where we're not supposed to tackle each other, right? And I tackle somebody. It's like, oh, Miles, what are you doing? Like this is no tackle, And then the next play, Kevin tackles somebody, and it's like, oh, great hit. Like, great tackle, good. And I'm just like, what are these double standards?
Yep.
And then one day in the weight room, me and Ethan are just sitting to the side doing homework because we're in honors classes and we just needed to get our algebra done or whatever it was. And then we see Kevin doing dips, right? Just like on the bar. And he's just like not going down at all, maybe like 45 degrees. And me and Ethan are just like, yo, you see this? And then the coach goes up to him and he's like, what are you doing? Those aren't full reps. Like, you're not getting anything out of that. And then he's like, man, I like to see somebody else do better. And then Ethan was like, all right, hold up. He puts his book, we put our books down. And then I'm just like, all right, just go get him. And he's just like, all right, bet. So he walks up to him. He walks right past him. And then Kevin's like, oh, where's he going? He goes to grab a chain off the wall, puts like a thick, very heavy chain, puts it around his neck. This is freshman year of football. We're only like 13, 14 years old. Then he gets up there and does 14, like all the way down, all the way up. We're cold. We haven't stretched, and he didn't do anything before we got there. So he didn't have the excuse of just like, oh, like my arms are burnt. No, none of that. And so he does 14, and then the coach is just eating up every second of it. And I'm eating up every second of it because he's finally getting humbled. And then Ethan like turns around and he looks at me and I'm like, well, I have to. So I take the chain. I do 14 because what else I wasn't going to do any less than 14. Ethan just did 14. And I
would have did 15 just to be like, F you, Ethan.
I probably should have, but I was also probably really tired. 14 was good enough. Yeah. And so that was probably the only time all season where Kevin was just like, yeah, all right, y'all got that. Like, he couldn't say a word. He was humbled, and the rest of the season was kind of trash, but like, I didn't care. I had that moment, and that was all I needed.
Yeah. So, sports, theater, when you did theater, were you just like, how did you do in that? What productions did you guys do?
So some fun wrestling related stuff with this. So I got into theater my sophomore year of high school, and that was the same time Ethan joined as well. And my sister and maybe my brother were big theater nerds, mostly my sister, but we all went to the same high school. So the teacher knows her, and, she knew me as well. And sophomore year, we did Godspell. I'm trying to remember. I think there may have been a fall play. I think there was a fall play. I think the fall play was Radium Girls, but I wasn't a part of that. But I'm in like an acting class, right? And it's Godspell, and my teacher's like, oh, you should do it. And I'm like, oh, I'm not very religious, thinking that mattered. I'm just like, oh, I'm not really religious. And she's like, no, that doesn't matter at all. Like, just join. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And I had terrible stage fright. So just like for the audition alone, I had never sang in front of everybody. And I was so just like nervous. And I didn't get any lead parts because there also weren't a lot of lead parts to begin with. It was literally just Jesus, Judas, a few other singers, and then the rest were just all extras. But the extras would get like some lines here and there, right? And so I don't know if Ethan told this story or not on his, but basically our co-director was a big wrestling fan, huge wrestling fan. All his life, he's watched wrestling. And one day in class, Ethan and I had to put on a little project that showcased our creativity. And so our project that we did was just having a match. We haven't trained at all or anything, just a couple, some backyard trampoline stuff, blah, blah, blah. And so we just put on a little bit of a match and all this other stuff. And we showed that to the co-director. His name was Big Dave. And we showed it to him and he was just like, oh, wow, okay, that's really, really cool. Because there's two boys in theater. First of all, there's not a lot of boys in theater. So it was already cool that, there were just a couple that were interested, but that were also wrestling fans. So he saw that and he was like, okay, yeah, I see that you guys can, keep each other safe. You guys know how to work the crowd and stuff like that. Let me see if I can pull some strings. We were just like, okay. So we're just going on with rehearsals and stuff like that. And then the characters that weren't the upper roles, it was just kind of like, oh, who wants to do this? Or just, out of the people that they selected. And Ethan was Lazarus. And basically Lazarus had to die, right? And so we were like, how can we kill off Lazarus? And so what we did was Lazarus was in a match with The Rock. And Ethan had his WWE Championship replica, and I bought a Rock t-shirt that just said, just bring it, off WWE Shop. And I cut off the sleeves, and our slide or our set was just a playground, right? So there's like monkey bars, a rock climb, slide, swings, the whole nine. And so out of nowhere, the musical's going on, and then there's just like a scene with Lazarus, and then the narrator was like, and then suddenly, and then the if you smell, and then the Rock's music hits. And then in the background, because the person didn't really know what they were doing, it was a WWF logo. And then I just come out because my hair was very short back. So right now, my hair is really dumb right now, but it's very long now, right? This was not the case for a very, very long time. For my entire life, my hair was very, very short. Like
you could do the Rocky Maivia now.
Yeah, like early 2000s, Yeah. And so I come out, I climb, like the monkey bars or whatever, and then I'm doing the face, I'm doing the look. I do, with the championship replica over my arm, I go down the slide, and then Judas hands me a microphone. And then I'm like, hey, you, what's your name? And then Ethan starts talking. He's like, I'm Lazarus. And I'm like, it doesn't matter what your name is.
Now, is the rest of the crowd into this, or just only for you and the directors?
This is honestly just me and the directors. Because
like the rest of the school's like, what the hell is happening?
No, this is a high school musical, and everybody's like, yo, what is going on? Why is The Rock in Godspell? This makes no sense. We're like, big pop.
The parents are like, what is happening?
Yeah, they're so confused. They see the WWF logo, and they're just taken back to like the 80s, 90s, and they're just like, I'm so confused right now. And then, so I did a couple more of The Rock's catchphrases and stuff like that. And they had like a really long jump rope, just like a super long rope that, they had as like a ring. And so they do that. And then Ethan's like, oh my God, like this is so cool. And then he realized that I'm like about to whoop his ass. And he's just like, wait, you want me to fight him? No. He's trying to leave. It was like a lumberjack match. The extras are just pushing him back into the ropes. And then he's just like, oh my God, it's The Rock. And all this other stuff. And then the second I started beating up Ethan, it was like I turned heel. It was crazy. Like just the extras immediately start booing me, right? And so we put on a little bit of a match. All it was I think I hit him a few times, maybe duck one, blah, blah, blah. I think I went to give him like a rock bottom, and then he countered into like a stunner, and then that was his falsie. He covers, kick out. Everyone's like, He's like, all right, that was my one. This is The Rock. What am I supposed to do? I kip up, give him a super kick because the crowd doesn't know that The Rock doesn't do shit.
Yeah.
And then gave him just like a people's elbow. I bought these cheap little like elbow pads off like at Dick's or something like that. I throw them into the crowd, do the whole thing, do the people's elbow, and then just 1, 2, 3, crowd boos me out of the building or whatever, and then I immediately go backstage, change into the like bright colorful hoodie that I had as an extra, and then got right back on stage like 2 minutes later.
You got back in your tree costume.
No, yeah. I put my glasses back on, I take off the armbands and all this other stuff, like my tights, and it was really fun.
Was that technically your first match in front of a live crowd?
Technically, yeah. And it was against Ethan, and now we performed like 5 times, so I guess I'm like 5 up on Ethan.
Yeah. It's gonna be like when they always talk about the Sean documentary, and for his high school talent show, him and his buddy that when they grew up being wrestling fans put a match on in front of the talent show of the school, and then that guy became the world champion. You know what I mean?
That's incredible.
And Sean bladed
at a talent show.
I believe so.
Yet.
He did it that time. Sean was Ethan, man. He was hooked in. Like from the second he's seen wrestling, he's like, I'm doing this for the rest of my life. That's so awesome. So you guys find your school. Tell me how you got into your training aspect where you legit got trained and you weren't beating each other up in high school productions.
Yeah. So we're at an Evolve show, right? It was like the 10th anniversary or something like that. This is when like Adam Cole was champ. He was defending it against like Tozawa or whatever. Gulak was there, and he was like representing Catchpoint as like a one-time, thing, and stuff like that. So we just attend as fans, right? And we're meeting some of them afterwards, and it's just like, oh my God, like Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, because Evolve had like the partnership with NXT, and some of the people clear out, and then some of the wrestlers are still there, and then Gulak is there, and then me and Nathan are like, yo, we didn't like pay it for like a ticket to take a picture with him or anything, but like, let's go talk to him. So then we go talk to him, and then we ended up showing him the little match that we put on in class that I told you about, the little like creativity project. And then he's giving us some advice because we're like, yeah, we want to be, wrestlers as well. Like, what do you recommend? Like, what schools? Because it was looking like we were maybe going to go to the Monster Factory or something like that. That was the main one that we had, talked about, because it was in Paulsboro and we lived in Pennsauken, which is not far, like less than 30 minutes. And he was like, I can't recommend any school other than the Wrestle Factory right here in Philly. And we were like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll look into that. We look into it and it's like, oh, this is like the school. Like a lot of guys have come out of here. Oh, wow. And so then we look into it and then it's just like in the state of New Jersey, you can't, or is it PA? One of those, you can't train for pro wrestling until you're 18. And so we're just like, is there any way that there's got to be some kind of workaround, right? So then we get in contact with them and then they're just like, basically, okay, sign this form with your, parent signature, and that should be enough for the lawyers and stuff like that. And we were like, all right, bet. So we're both 17, our senior year of high school, and we just sign up for like the beginner classes, and we learn how to bump, and it's painful at first, basically giving yourself a choke slam when you've never bumped before. Hurts so bad. We kept going, and so our first trainer was Sonny Defarge, and it was a lot of fun. It was just, okay, this is our spot. This is what we're doing. This is, where we're training. This is great. And then at the time in high school, we only went like once a week or so because we were doing the beginner classes. And then eventually we signed up for core, which was like, 3 classes a week or something like that. And then Sonny would teach the Monday classes, and then it would just be a huge Monday class, and we do a bunch of dumb stuff and a lot of like really productive stuff, and it was just overall a great time. And so that was our first school. And then since then we've trained, with Speedball. Our main places right now are the Worldwide Dojo, with Burger, and then CZW. I have trained at the DDT Dojo in Japan, which is a running joke with the boys, because I studied there. I studied abroad in Japan, fall of 2022. Fall of 2022, and so I got to do that for a bit because I was like,
so you and Sonny both had some time in Japan.
Yeah. One time I interviewed Sonny for a class project, and he told me about that there because it was just, the project was like, okay, find somebody, a professional in your field, that's doing what you want to do one day, and just ask them all these questions. And I was like, okay. So then I just interviewed Sonny for a bit.
You can give bullet points on Mike Bailey, Sonny Defarge, and Cheeseburger, what would you say, like, if you were telling somebody these are their best qualities as a coach, this is what I learned best for them, like, what would their 3 bullet points for each one would be?
All right, I'm gonna have to think about this for a quick second. So I'll start with Burger because he's probably the one I like. It's the freshest in my mind because it's been a minute since I've trained with both Sonny and Speedball. So the dojo in general is just a very, diverse place. And so so the first bullet point that I would give about Burger is that he really fine-tunes just the little things. And so technique-wise, he really just digs deep, and just adjusts the minor things that we could have gotten away without, but he took the time to make sure we made those corrections and we're better off because of it. With that, he also emphasizes, I guess the second bullet point would be, he emphasizes, I guess, just the psychology. He talks about structure a lot, what to do in certain parts of the match. And sorry, put me a little on the spot with this question. There's so much about it. Because they all have so many great qualities, but a lot of them overlap, and so I'm trying to not say repeat things.
I don't know him as the coach. I just know him as Cheeseburger, and then it's like also like a lot of times I've seen him. He's not really like, he doesn't work. He's not even working. He's just kind of there to be supportive and hang out, which is a cool feature about him as well. But he's just very like, he kind of stays to himself. He doesn't he's not one that walks in and says, look at me, I'm Cheeseburger. Like, he just kind of, if he could fly under the radar, he will. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he will just like, I'm going to go over here. You know what I mean? Like, but he he demands a presence. Like, the guy's been places, he's rubbed elbows to a lot of people. The cool thing about the Worldwide Dojos, man, is like the people who have come out of that building, like the historic aspect of that building, and the people who have trained there, and before Berger took it over, and then just like you never know who's going to walk in the door because they respect Berger and they respect that building and they respect what he does there. That like the Wheeler Yutas and these people just kind of come in and like, hey, let's just kind of let's work with your students. I think that's a great place to be.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I will say the Sunny classes on Mondays, those were very, very special. But in general, Berger's is probably like the most fun place that we'll train at. There's just something about it. It's a bit more lighthearted. It's not like drill sergeant-y in any way. It's very just accepting and welcoming and, you know, just a comforting space. And especially if Eli's there, it's just like a very funny day because he makes Berger laugh a lot. We'll do practice matches just almost every class, at least for the advanced classes. And you just learn so much there, especially different styles. So I learned a lot of lucha at the factory, but I've learned a lot more complex lucha at the dojo, which is very, very cool. With Sunny, this is going to be a bit hard to remember because it's been so long since I've trained, since the factory moved up to Copley, PA. But he gave a lot of good advice. I remember I asked him to like watch one of my debut matches or something like that. And he would just be like, you look great, slow down, which a lot of people tell me to slow down. But one of the things he said was make things look more natural. So a sequence can be long and, you know, complex without looking, you know, scripted and choreographed. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. So he was just like, keep killing it, but keep this in mind. And I was like, okay. He's such an underrated wrestler. People don't understand how good he is. He is absolutely incredible. He's very professional, and I've learned so much from him. I'm sorry, I'm not following the 3 bullet points.
It's okay. I think that's a great bullet point too. Is like, I would totally agree. Like, if you need a tag team, and it's not, Crumbles and Defarge is a good tag team, and what they do in the ring is so underrated. Like, sometimes I get caught up in the look too much, where I look at somebody, I go, I'm not into this look. I'm not into something about it is not for me. And Crumbles and Defarge at first wore that, and then I seen them work, and they quickly became one of my favorite tag teams. And then I always say to people, like, you should see, like, I want to see this tag team versus them. You know what I mean? And one of the first ones I really seen do that, where I already knew I was a fan of this one tag team, and then they worked Crumbles and Defarge, and I became more of a fan of Crumbles and Defarge after, because of the chemistry they had. That was main event versus Crumbles and Defarge and Camp Leapfrog was the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like, it was so good. It was so good.
Yeah, like, it's very easy to have like, oh, my dream match is against my coach, and it is. For, you know, a lot of my dream matches are just against my coaches, but I just think me and Sonny would just have a banger, and it would just be really, really good. He knows everything there is to know in the ring, you know. And then Speedball learned a lot about strikes for sure, in case you couldn't guess, but he also really hammered in psychology. And so our first encounter with Speedball was actually just attending a seminar that he had at the dojo. And that was a seminar based off of just match structure in general, specifically the comeback. The comeback portion of the match, because you could, you know, have endless seminars of just about just how to structure a match. But that was a lot that we learned. And then he gives great feedback every now and then. If I ask him to look up a match that I'm in and just honest opinion, he does not hesitate. It might take a little bit for him to respond because he's probably the busiest professional wrestler in the world, or at least independent in the world, 100%. But he still takes the time out of his super busy schedule to just go into like very distinct detail about just like some things that I could have done better. And some things will be bigger issues. Some things will be very nitpicky things that I wouldn't have noticed had I not asked for his advice. And just, I think that goes to show a lot, goes to say a lot about his character, just the fact that he's willing to do that for his students. So those are just all a bunch of just quick highlights, or maybe not so quick highlights, just about those guys.
What are some highlights for you as a career? Like maybe some matches or some people you worked or some moments that you've had so far in your journey here, that really stick out for you?
That's a great question. So the big moments that come to mind are, I guess I would say, the bigger crowds, I guess, in the bigger shows that I've worked under, just because those have been incredibly memorable. So one of the greatest moments of my life was Steel Stacks 2, the most recent one that me and the rest of the boys, the Lost Boys, were fortunate enough to get on. And we were the opening match, and the crowd was fresh, and the crowd was hungry, and just you could feel the anticipation of just good wrestling that they were, longing for. And we opened the match against the Cyberhawks and Montekia. And
Cyberhawks and Montekia?
Yeah, because
that's a team right there. Woo!
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Jesus
because
Christ.
We're a 4-person group, and the Cyberhawks are a 3-person group. But who
and Montekia is the craziest.
He's so good. Mighty Montekia, for sure. So that was a fun match. And I remember towards the back half, we're doing some dives, and then all I did was just hit a tope onto, them and a bunch of the crew guys, and just the crowd is going nuts. They're going absolutely wild. This is the first big high spot of the night. And then I'm just laying there and I'm like, oh my God, I wish I could lay here for like 10 more minutes and just soak all of this in, because it was just such a surreal moment for me, because that crowd was probably like maybe 700-ish people, give or take. And I just never experienced that before. And just wrestling in that kind of environment was absolutely magical to me. Some other highlights. So for CZW, my first show at least on CZW was at the Battleship, and that's a
great way to come in.
One very close to my house. Yeah, the first thing I did in CZW was hit Miami Mike Walker with a chair. So I think that's speaks so many volumes. But that was incredible, because that was probably the most unique venue besides Steel Stacks that I had been to. And so we're just getting the ring together, and I'm just walking onto this Battleship, and you see the massive just guns and equipment just all over the place, and you don't realize how big it is until you're actually just on the ship. And it was just insane. It was completely surreal. And so just getting to wrestle in that environment as well. And it was very cold, so we were under a tent. We're actually going to be running there again in June, so that'll be cool to see the deck and just have the skyline in the background. But something like that was also incredible, just to see what wrestling can, like, where it can take you. Like, I hadn't been to the Battleship before ever. Like, it's a bit of a touristy thing, but I've never experienced it. I had never gone on there. And
I hope more wrestling companies do that, where they're like, they think outside the box and book venues that are like, you would never think to put a show on there, because it makes it so much more fun. It's like a Street Fighter stage. You know what I mean? Like, when you pick a map of Street Fighter, you look for the coolest looking, like, that'd be cool to fight there. And then you're like, wrestling ring in a Battleship? That's sick. Like,
literally, yeah. It's like Fightertainment as well. So like Fightertainment, one of my favorite shows to perform on, because it's a whole different world there.
The crowd's energy.
LDAC is one of my favorite places to wrestle, but right up there is Fightertainment, because it's just, I don't have to worry about the spots. I don't have to worry about, botches, because the crowd is just there to have a good time. They're just there to drink beer, watch some wrestling, and just enjoy themselves. And so
I'm so proud of that crowd, because that's my hometown. Like, I live 10 minutes from there. Like this, like I'm 10 minutes from the brewery. That brewery is like, not as much anymore, because I don't, car and everything else in my life that's going on. But that's my hangout spot. Like, if I'm like, hey, I'm going out for a beer today, I go to that bar. You know what I mean? Like, I travel the 10, 15 minutes to that place. Like, the owners I'm friends with, Deppin, the Budwashers, like most of the crowd, like Chuck with the long hair and the nose ring that you see at every GCW show in the front row. That's my buddy. Like, that's my family bar. You know what I mean? Like, that's where I go. And it is a bar, but we also always talk about punk music and pro wrestling. And then I'm like, we're gonna have wrestling here, and then you go to those shows. Anytime Pilguru does beer and wrestling, look, they had Bruce Giving that you wrestled on. Like, that's my hometown crowd. Like, and I'm like, and not a lot of them are wrestling fans. And people tell me all the time, I don't watch your podcast. I don't like pro wrestling. And then I see them at these shows and they're drunk and they're letting loose and having a blast. I'm like, you like pro wrestling. Just accept it.
Yeah.
Because you're the best crowd. Like,
yeah. There's this stigma about professional wrestling that it's just immature and just not, adult, and just people that have never experienced it before are just so quick to write it off. But once they actually just open up a little bit, just a bit, or some wrestling fan points them in the direction of just that match, it changes them, and they start to realize, oh, this is really cool. This isn't what I thought it was.
I tell people all the time, like, I have this one friend and they are super into like the Marvel movies and cinematic stuff and going to the theater and all this stuff. And I'm like, the feeling you got from Endgame when the portals opened up and they're all coming out to fight Thanos? I said, a good wrestling match gives you that. Like, you've watched them lose, and then they have that come up in the match, and you're like, they're gonna do it. Especially if it's a company or a storyline that you've been invested in for months or a year, and then you finally get that payoff. It's like, whoo! Like, pro wrestling is a Marvel movie. But the cool thing about a pro wrestling show is if it's booked properly, you have your horror, you have your comedy, you have your serious, you have, you know what I mean? Like, there's a spot for everyone in the show, or a character for everybody. And then I explained to them, I said, don't look at it as a sport, look at it as entertainment. And then when they flip that switch, like, this is so much fun. Like, it's
just, wrestling is nothing if not a roller coaster. And you feel that during the show, especially when it's booked well. And like you said, there's just so many different people that can enjoy it. Like we talked about before, Harleen being a big horror fan. Horror fans, there's plenty of characters for horror fans. Like House of Black, just like the Wyatt family, just like little things like that. There's just so many. It caters to everybody, you know. And just that's one of the many beautiful things about professional wrestling.
Yeah. So besides pro wrestling, what are some of the things that you're into?
All right. So as you can see, I am a very big Eagles fan. So I'm very heartbroken right now.
We won't talk about what happened this week.
We're not going to. No, you're absolutely right.
I'm not an Eagles fan. I'm sorry, but I don't listen. I should be an Eagles hater, and I was an Eagles hater for most of my life. And it wasn't until I got really close with BP Burke, everybody, the Tornado Tag Podcast, my commentary partner. The guy's killing it. He softened me up to the city of Philadelphia. I was the person I was like, dude, F Philly, F their sports teams, F their people. I'm not about it. Give me my Washington. You know what I mean? And I'm born and raised Pennsylvania my whole life. But the more I go to Philly for wrestling shows and I interact with more, and I'm like, oh, it's not every Eagles fan that's a piece of crap. You know what I mean? And they're not really pieces of crap. They're just really passionate about their team, about their city, about their sports. Sometimes it's a little overbearing, and sometimes people get hurt, and that's not cool. But I've been in situations where Eagle fans will bust your balls, will yell at you, will scream at you, but it doesn't go any further than that. And if you let them, if you show that it bothers you, they're gonna keep doing it. But if you laugh and go with it, you're gonna be one of them, and they'll give you a beer, and you'll have a great time. Maybe after the game, if they lose, it might be a different story. But for the most part, they're just passionate. And then I see like Cowboy fans and Giants fans, because we'll just stick to the NFC East. Giants fans can't tell you a goddamn thing about their team unless they're good. It's just the truth. They don't know anything about their team all year. Oh, our team's winning, and they put on their Yankees hat or they put on their thing, and then all of a sudden they're the biggest fans of all time. And Eagle fans can tell you their third string center who's on the practice squad and what college he went to. And I'm like, I respect that fan base. So I have come to love the Eagles and respect them. And I own one Eagles jersey because it was given to me by my uncle before he passed away. I have a Cunningham jersey, but it's a Spalding jersey. It's not even like a legit jersey. It's like old when they used to put jerseys on Spaldings. But I will be owning a Kelly Green Kelsey jersey because it's looking like he just retired.
If I could have one jersey, it's a Kelly Green Kelsey jersey easily. He's gonna take over the world. We're saying it now. January 17th, 2024. Kelsey will be the face of everything. Just put him in commercials, his podcast. He's a super entertaining guy, and he's genuine. He's just a genuine human. He is. He's absolutely incredible. I have so much respect for Jason Kelsey. So yeah, very passionate. I'm just starting to get into the other Philly sports just because I didn't really grow up a big baseball, basketball, soccer fan, but I'm starting to get into the Phillies and the Sixers a little bit more. I still haven't really gotten into hockey yet. Like, sure, go Flyers, but it's like,
we should make a plan when the season comes around. I've never been to a Philly game. I've only been to DC, but we should go to a Union game. I'm a DC United guy, but I want to experience a Union game. I heard Union games are a good time.
I believe it. So yeah, I'm a big Philly sports guy. I went to my first Sixers game a few weeks back actually for Ryan's birthday, and that was a great time. I kind of couldn't believe it actually. Like I didn't know basketball could be that fun.
I got tickets maybe 6 years ago. I worked at a job up here, and they have a box in Philly, and they always give away 7 tickets every week when you worked at this job, and I won it like 3 times. So 3 times I've been in the box for Sixers games. The one time we go, the box right next to us, Iverson was sitting there, and I was like, that's fucking AI. I was like, I wasn't allowed to talk to him because he was surrounded by people, but I would just look across the box and there he was. I was like, yeah, I'm in the Sixers game and AI is right there.
That is incredible. That is so amazing.
It was dope. It was dope. They're fun. They're fun games, man. I was super excited because they were playing the Mavericks, and I was like, oh, I get to see Dirk live. He didn't suit up. Dude didn't suit up. Dirk was there, and I think at the time Vince Carter was on the team, and neither one of them played, and I was really bummed about it.
Yeah, but so Eagles for sure. I'm a big football guy, but as the other thing that you can see is, it's inverted, and so I'm like, ever since I was little, I have been a huge Spider-Man guy. Just I love it with all my heart. And to even show you a little bit more.
What's on the other side? Is that a 76ers thing, and what's above that?
What here?
Yeah.
So that's actually.
Oh, that's a Japan scarf.
That is a Japan scarf. Above it is just a little tapestry thing. Both of those things I got when I was in Japan.
What is it though? A tapestry of what?
The one above is just a random tapestry that just kind of looks cool.
Okay. I was like tie-dyed?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
It's a little more intricate than tie-dye, but essentially, yeah. And then the bottom one is for Japan's soccer team.
Okay.
So I'm a little fake by having that up in my room because I've never seen a game, but I would love to support Japan. So these are a couple other things that I just have on my desk because I'm such a big Spider-Man nerd.
Are you a Peter guy? Are you a Miles guy?
Oh, it is so funny that you asked me that. Okay, so I am a Peter guy, but at the same time, where do you think the Miles and Miles Penn came from? Like it was from Miles Morales because, oh my gosh, I've been obsessed with Spider-Man for as long as I can remember. Just little kid, that's all I would dress up as, like 5 years in a row, just straight Spider-Man. And I'm also a camp counselor, right? And at this camp, we have camp names, so we don't use our real names. And my camp name is Spidey. And so it's just like, that's what the kids call me. And it resonates with me and it's beautiful. Oh man, I am a Peter guy just because I've had so much more time to just resonate with Peter, but Miles is my guy. It's just I can't.
I need Miles on the big screen. When they alluded to him in the last movie, they're like, I wonder if there's a Black Spider-Man. When Jamie Foxx said that, I was like, there is, and we need him. Bring him in.
No, literally, like Spider-Verse is already my favorite trilogy, and the third one hasn't even come out yet. Like those movies are absolutely incredible, and they're just
I didn't like the second one as much. The cartoon. I really, really, really liked part 1, and I've watched it probably 4 or 5 times. The second one was good. It just didn't grab me like the first one did. And then it ends on the cliff, and then I was like, oh, all right. I think they were trying to do too much. I think they put too much universe into it and not enough of what I like of the character. You know what I mean? Like when he kept going back and forth. Like I thought there was too much bleed and too much crammed in. And I think it's going to make sense when the second one comes. And I think when the second one comes, watching them back to back will make them one cohesive unit. But it was just kind of like build up to nothing, if that makes sense. Just watching part 1 by itself.
I would disagree. I understand where you're coming from, but it's just all of that build up was just some crazy stuff happening because there's just the ticking clock with his dad about to be, sworn in and all this other stuff. And then it's like, oh snap, who knows what like this other Miles is about to do to him. And it's just so insane.
I love how they built up Gwen though. I thought Gwen was the star of the show, the first movie.
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
And she shined a lot in Across the Spider-Verse. And we saw a lot of just her backstory and just her personality, and I thought it was very well deserved. I thought that was a lot of fun.
I hope Gwen takes off and has just as much of a following or as a need for her own movie and her own franchise in a not just a cinematic, like in the cinematic side of things for Spider, as much as people are clamoring for Miles. I think Gwen's just as good as a character. Like so I love comic books and superheroes. Like I'm a Batman guy. Yeah. I love me some Batman, but you always like, who are the two most iconic superheroes of all time? And people either say Batman or they say Spider-Man. And the reason for that is because more people are attached to their villains. I think they have the best villains gallery of any superheroes is Spider-Man and Batman. Who is your favorite Spider-Verse or Spider villain?
Ooh, favorite Spider villain. Probably Green Goblin.
Okay.
I would say. There's a lot to choose from. But growing up, I am old enough to have grown up on those Spider-Man movies. And so just Willem Dafoe's depiction of just Green Goblin is absolutely just legendary, and it's amazing. So probably Green Goblin. I'm trying to think of others. Not Lizard. Not Doc Ock, although he is, also very iconic in his own way. But
the Doc Ock comic where him and Peter switch bodies and Peter dies as Doc Ock and Doc Ock is Peter is a really good book.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Comic books are always a kind of thing that like I've wanted to get into, but just never did. But
by compilation, I always say them wrong, but it's like when they stick all the books in one book and you just buy one book and it's a whole line. Like I know some comic book people like, no, buy every issue. I don't have space for that. I buy the big book and I read the entire story arc and then I enjoy it that way. That's how I do it.
Yeah, I might do that.
I think it's,
that's very tempting. And then I guess just other things. I have been slacking on it lately, but I go to Temple and we have a breakdancing club that I'm also a part of. So I'm a part of that. Like I said, I'm a camp counselor. That is a huge part of my life.
I want to backtrack real quick. How much has breakdancing enhanced your professional wrestling?
Not a crazy amount yet, but I see a lot of the things where I'm just like, okay, I can work that in somewhere. Like I can.
You know whose brain you have to pick? Because he was a breakdancer for the longest time and then transitioned to professional wrestler, and the way he controls and contorts his body, you can tell, and you're like, oh my god, I can't believe I haven't put the two together. Rocket.
Yeah.
Rocket's breakdancing and everything like that. Like when he sells and his body goes limp, that's a lot of that's just his breakdancing that he converted over to his wrestling.
He was at Fightertainment and we do the quick 10-second intros, and then with he did a flare, and I was just like, okay, he used to breakdance, because regular people don't just whip out flares. Like I'm not even on flares. Like
his cells are so good because it literally looks like he has no spine. Like he gets hit with a destroyer and he just turns into a puddle somehow. You're like, how did you do that?
Insane gymnastics background. He's just such a wild.
Did you see his destroyer off the wall of H2O to the guy on the top turnbuckle?
That was insane.
What a nut.
I have yet to take a destroyer in an actual match. I can't even imagine doing something like that. That was absolutely nuts. I couldn't believe it when I saw that. I mean, I'm lying. It was H2O and Rocket, so I take it back. I definitely believed it, but I was just like, sheesh, I can't.
He's so good. I'm sorry. Go back to what you're saying now. Camp counselor.
No, sorry. And so this tattoo I got when I was in Japan. This is of Mount Fuji, right? Because I climbed that when I was in Japan. But here is my only other tattoo, and it's a caterpillar because that's the mascot of the camp that I'm in.
I have a Mount Fuji tattoo as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Right there on my elbow, that's my grandfather. But my grandfather was stationed in Japan, so on my elbow is his Mount Fuji badge.
Oh my god, that's sick.
Yeah. So I have Mount Fuji on me.
That's awesome. climbing Mount Fuji was the single hardest thing I have done in my entire life. It took 7 hours, and we did it on essentially no sleep. It was insane, and we essentially just did it on a whim. Like, I didn't have any hiking shoes. My friend was like, "Hey, a bunch of us are gonna go climb next week. You want to come with us?" I was like, "Yeah, sure."
Is that snow covered when you're up there?
I don't believe no. So this was before the snow, I believe.
Okay.
Because this was like September, like early September, like right before the cutoff of like when people are allowed to climb it. So when I went there, it wasn't snow covered. It's still very cold because it's however high up it is. Took about 7 hours to get to the top, to the peak, and we didn't go to sleep. We spent all day getting there, because that took a while. It was a whole travel day, and then we took maybe like a 20-minute power nap, and then we started climbing at 11 o'clock at night, and we got there around like 5, 6 in the morning, something like that.
So when you get to the top of a mountain, what do? Do you hang out there for a couple hours, or you're just like, all right, and then just turn around and come back?
Yeah, so I napped. Actually, I took a nap
on top of Mount Fuji.
I took a nap on top of Mount Fuji.
That's exactly what I would do.
No,
yeah, I'm going to sleep
because the altitude. Like, I've never really experienced altitude sickness before. But 7 hours up, I wanted to walk around so bad. We walked with a bunch of other people, but it's hard to keep pace with people for that long. So it was mostly just me and like 2 of my friends. And so we get up there and they're like walking around, and I just take a few steps, and I don't know what it was, but the altitude sickness finally hit me. And I was just like, just standing up, I got lightheaded. So I was like, all right, I am exhausted. I'm going to nap. So then I just fell asleep for like 2 hours. And then we eventually just like trekked back down, which took like 5 hours.
Now, when you look at a mountain, obviously it looks like a peak.
Yeah.
Now, when you get to the top of that mountain, how much space is there up there? Like, is it just flat, nothing around, or just like you see out? Like, what does the top of Mount Fuji look like?
So the top of Mount Fuji, there's a lot of space. So I thought the same thing. I'm just like, oh, a mountain is just like this. It's
just like
you're basically
get off the top so I can stand on it. So I say I did it. It's not like a pencil point.
Yeah. Exactly. But there's so much space. There's so many different hills and just peaks, and it's like, yeah, there's the peak, but there's like a peak that you can't really get to because it's unclimbable. But you're still at the top, and then there's just a bunch of different not a bunch of different paths, but I guess just small little trails, and you can see all of it together. Absolutely beautiful, breathtaking, both figuratively and literally. Probably the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Best picture I've ever taken was just being above the clouds, like descending into the clouds on the way down. And just we got there at the top around sunset, which is why we decided to start hiking at 11 o'clock at night. And it was just an amazing experience. Hardest thing I've ever done. I definitely like had to push myself a lot. Like, it was definitely like a mental, just like discipline thing getting up there. But I don't know if I'd do it again. I'd probably do it again, but like once may have been enough. But I'm
sick. How 7 hours? And he's in shape and he couldn't. I'm gonna hang. I'll drink. I'll wait for you guys to come back down.
Yeah. Like, show me the pictures.
Yeah. Get me a bottle of. Just put some air in a bottle and bring it down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So going into 2024, actually, before we get into that, what 2023? What would you say you have learned about yourself in this business? What are some things that you wish you can change a little bit, or maybe setbacks? Like, overall, 2023 in a compilation, and then what are you looking forward to in 2024?
Okay, so 2023 was I would say a very successful year, because I had I said this on my Instagram, but I had, I believe, 53 matches. I had 53 matches. I debuted last January, and I'm a full-time college student. It is so incredibly hard to balance sometimes, because it's just like, okay, yeah, let's drive all the way to Pittsburgh and then Vermont and then back home on a week where I have a lot of homework. And it's just like, I don't know if I can do that, but I guess I'll do it. It's not easy at all, but it's just, I do it because I love it, and I want to go far in this business, and I want, like, it is my life. And I can't make it my whole life right now because I'm in college. But I think I did a pretty good job balancing. Um, like I reached places that I know people that have been wrestling for years haven't. And I don't know if there's something special. I don't know if I'm working harder. I don't know if I just have gotten presented with better opportunities. I don't know what it is, but I think I'm doing pretty well. And I'm very excited to continue. So basically, 2023, I got myself out there and I got all over the place. I wrestled in a bunch of different states. I made it up to Canada. Oh my God, Canada. What a talk about wrestling highlights. Yes, wrestling steel stacks and all that other stuff. But going to Canada with Ethan and Ryan, that was one of the greatest days of my entire life. Just messing around Montreal with those two like bozos was just so much fun. It was great. Setbacks, I would say I could have been a lot more consistent. So I know I have like a pretty decent physique. Some of it's like from hard work, some of it is just genetic. But I don't work out as much as people think I do. So I woke up super early this morning at like 6 or whatever, and then me and my buddy went to the gym here on campus. But I usually don't do that often. There was a period in time where me and Ethan were getting super jacked over the summer for like a few weeks because we were working out like 4 or 5 times a week. But like going back to school, it's really hard to get back into that balance. So not necessarily setbacks, but I definitely could have been a lot more consistent and just discipline myself a little bit more to just continue getting in better shape instead of just staying in shape, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um,
You're in wrestling shape, but it is a body industry and you got to put a little on, you know what I mean?
Very
But
much so.
here's the thing, and I'll say about all Lost Boys, like, and just not just your stable, but like it's harder to be a younger talent and be in your early 20s and put on muscle. It's not easy to do, and especially when you are at that stage. I mean, like you look at like Jordan Oliver or Nick Wayne, like it was hard for them for a long time to put physique
Yeah.
on. But once they matured a little bit and their body kind of plateaued for them, they were able to put more on. I actually said, like, one of the biggest things I always say too is, like, I was kind of even talking to Journey about it. I said I learned from Green Ant, and I don't even know if he remembers me doing, if he even remembers having this conversation with me, but he told me back in the day, he came up to me at Camp Leapfrog. He's like, "What'd you think of my match?" And I was new, and I was just like, "Man, it was great." And he goes, "You're a liar." I go, "What?" he goes, "If you want to be in this industry and you're not a wrestler and you're a journalist and you're a podcaster and you want to help out and do commentary and be in this world," he goes, "the best thing you can do to stand out and get respect from your peers is be honest." He goes, like, don't give your opinion if it's not wanted, or don't be a dick, or, like, you know what I mean? But being honest, but in a loving way, will get you further than anything else. Someone says, "Hey, my match was good." I always find the best in anything. Like, "Hey, man, maybe it wasn't a great thing. I think on your end, though, this is where you shined and you did really well, and maybe your opponent did this and this wrong," which it made the overall match. But what I was saying before we went live, I was talking to her. I was like, "Man, a lot of the Lost Boys, once they hit that point where their body flattens out and they put more physique on, everything else is already there. Their mindset, their hustle, their grind, everything. It's a body business, but it's not a huge setback. But how you say, like, once you put a little on, everything else is there for all of you, and it's gonna be a big deal."
I agree. It does make a big difference because this is such a just cosmetic industry.
Putting more muscle on too will help you with those minor bumps and aches.
I was going to say it is
and injuries too. Yeah,
that's one of the things that Gulak told us way back when we were asking for advice. He was like, "Oh yeah, go to the gym, put on muscle." And we were like, "Oh yeah, because you got to be a good base." And he was like, "No, you're landing a lot all the time, and it sucks, and it takes a toll on your body. You need to have like some meat on your bones to be able to like protect yourself a little bit. Like people like Darby Allin, who are a little bit smaller but taking crazy bumps, that's not great for them. That's why a lot of people are just like,
I've been saying every time we watch him, I'm like, "Oh, he's going, like, we're gonna watch him end himself," and it's not good. Like, I hate watching his matches because he that's what his gimmick is. He just takes insane bumps, and it's like every single time a professional wrestler is in the ring, and I'm not saying this to be over dramatic or anything, but every single time a professional wrestler, man, woman, whatever, is in a ring and they are working, they are centimeters away from paralyzation.
Yeah.
One wrong move, one wrong step, one wrong base, one wrong throw, one wrong land, they're paralyzed or dead every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And the more you can do that safely and controlled is good. But when Darby's out there just taking those risks every time, it's like it's
Mhm.
not a matter of if, it's when, and it sucks. I don't look forward to his matches for that reason.
Yeah, it's like you have guys like Sting, wrestling for as long as he has because he's been able to do that. But then there's a good chance that he doesn't make it to like 30,
Yeah.
and that's such a shame. I don't want to do that. So
I love
it's
Adam
like,
Cole, but he's got to put muscle on because he's getting hurt a lot.
yeah, it's like I'll take a big bump, but one, it has to make sense. I'm not going to do it in front of no people, and again, it has to be safe, but I'll feel better doing those once I have put on a little bit more. I'm in decent shape, sure, but I could be in much better shape. Like I'm the big guy of the Lost Boys. I'm not that big. I weigh 195. I'm 6'1". I'm
You're
bigger
the
than
tallest of the Lost Boys.
yeah, yeah. I'm like yeah, I can lift a little bit more than them. Okay, cool, but I'm nowhere near just like what a jacked pro wrestler is. But it is something that I'm like excited to get, excited to work for, which is why I like woke up super early this morning, had a couple protein shakes.
One of my favorite things about the Lost Boys, and I always say this, if you're going to get in this business, is put yourself around good people. But it's tough, man, because I'm not saying this to be negative about the business, and I'm not saying this to put a black eye on it. But man,
Yeah.
there's a lot of dirtballs, and there's a lot of scummy people. There's a lot of carnies. There's a lot of people who act like your best friend, but will step on your goddamn neck to get to that next level.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I love about the Lost Boys, that I love about the Goons, that I love about these people who are genuinely friends, genuinely care about each other, they always seem to do better in this business, because this business is not just hard on your body, it's hard on your mental. It's hard on like who are your friends, and when you're struggling, when you're on your lows, who's going to give you the advice to get you out of your low, and who's going to be like, he's low, now's my time to step over him. And I
Yeah.
think the cool thing about the Lost Boys, and I think you're going to have that longevity amongst the four of yous, is because you keep each other motivated. You guys are each other's shoulders to be on when you're at those lows and you're struggling. And if one of you struggle,
Right.
you all struggle, and it's easier to do it as a team than it is by yourself. And I think that's what's going to set you guys apart, and that's why you have done and got the opportunities you have, because I think you
Yeah.
have that friendly competition of one another. And then one guy goes out here and does this one thing at this promotion, and he's like, I got three other guys if you like me, and you pull each other up with you. And I think that's what's
Mhm.
going to set you guys apart. I'm a Lost Boy fan for life.
Hell
I
yeah.
love what you guys do. You guys are just good. You're good people. It's hard to find good people in this business. And you're one of the good ones. And every time I see you guys, I'm very thankful. I'm very honored to be your friends. And I can't wait to keep watching you guys grow. But where else can people find you besides the links below to support you? Are your adventures going forward?
So because the rest of the Lost Boys, we spend a lot of time around each other. So if you ever just want to know what the Lost Boys are doing, you can check out any of our socials. Junie on Instagram is, I believe, Junie Underwood FS Pro. Ethan is just Ethan_wrestles. Ryan is a bum and doesn't have an Instagram. We've been
He has
battling about
nothing.
that.
That guy's disappeared. You
No,
might see him on the show. That's it. You're not getting
yeah,
him on social media.
yeah. It's like anytime there's a graphic, it's just like, oh, these two people are tagged, Miles is tagged, and then just nothing over Ryan. It'll be like the company promotion or something like that, because Ryan just refuses to get an Instagram. But
He's so insanely entertaining too. He always shines at the Fightertainment shows. So entertaining.
He's our talker. He's like our personality. If there's one person in the group that has a personality, it is Ryan. Like Ryan is the smartest, but also the funniest person I've ever met. And just, he would do so well with social media. One of these days, I'll just get him in a headlock until he makes one while I'm holding him. But until that day,
We'll tie him to a chair and then turn your camera on so I can get my last interview with the Lost Boys.
oh, absolutely. So any of our socials, I believe mine are in the links or however you share them.
Yep.
You can catch us at CZW. We'll be on a lot of those shows. There's a lot of shows coming up this year, some in Philly, some in Maryland, a lot of cool venues. Like I said, we'll be going back to the Battleship, so you can catch us there. Hopefully Ethan and I will be on more LVAC. Who knows? We'll see. But those are just some of the places that you can find us. We're lost. We're everywhere. So
I love it. I love it. Well, hey man, thank you so much for your time and hanging out with me today.
absolutely.
Everyone, make sure you check out the next week's episode. Check out the previous ones where I did talk to Ethan and Junie. Ryan coming soon. Support the Lost Boys. Like I said, I don't tend to have people on this podcast if I don't like them generally. And when people, I actually got asked this question this week. They're like, well, how come this person has been on this person? I said, because I like to meet them a couple times and hang out with them and talk to them and really like learn about them as a person. Because I don't just let anybody on here. There's a few times where I just let people on, and then like 6 months later, I'm like, that guy sucks. Why don't I give him a platform? I don't like him. I think there's some people that are on this podcast episode I didn't like. There's not a lot. There's like 3, but I was like, man, I wish I would have taken more time to get to know them and find out who they are as a person, because I think it's not about, yeah, sure, I can go get this cool name or this cool person or that cool person, but to me, I like to meet them, hang out with them a little bit, and have that connection. I think that's what makes the interview better and stand out. But yeah, support these people, man. They're all good people. Every episode from the past, support all of them, even if you don't know who the dickhead is. Just support them all. Thank you guys so much. ABJ Podcast, we're grinding away, getting close to that 110, 120, soon to be 200. But we've been going there. The journal's been going strong. All the other content. Discord is a place to be if you're in the Discord community. We just made this. So by the time this airs, it's already been out for a while, but check this out. This is we named our Discord the Cult. So the Cult of ABJ there. So join the Cult of ABJ on the Discord. We'll see you guys next time. If you do grab any merchandise or support the podcast, if you buy a t-shirt, please send me a photo in your t-shirt so I can see it and put it on social media and get all that out there. Go buy some Lost Boys merchandise, buy some Miles Penn merchandise, support them, follow them on social media, and we'll see you next time on the ABJ Podcast. Here's some music by the Converse Kid, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for watching this presentation. Like, share, and subscribe for more.
It's bonus content at the end. Also, I forgot to say this. Join the Opinion City Podcast. We joined up and became the Ben Frank Connection. So where there's one of us, there's 2 of us. So make sure you go support the Opinion City Podcast, as well as our new collaboration team called the Ben Frank Project. Why the Ben Frank Project? 2 of us are based in Pennsylvania. 1 of them is based in Jersey. What connects us together is the Ben Franklin Bridge. There's a little thing I didn't say at the beginning because I forgot this is the first podcast where I represented that. But go check out the Ben Frank Connection. We're looking for more content creators that want to join this team as well. But the catch to this is you can't just be someone on an independent show who shows up and, oh, you're only there because this former WWE guy is at your show and now all of a sudden you care about indie wrestling. To be part of this network, you got to care about the indie scene. You got to be there. You got to be supporting this team. And that's what the Opinion City Podcast does. That's what I do. And that's why we have this connection. So make sure you go support them as well. And we'll see you next time on the ABJ Podcast.